Welcome to Living Life in Color Again, the podcast for anyone who has lost a loved one to homicide. I'm your host, Kimberly Christopher. Growing up, it was quite common to hear people say, "So-and-so gets on my nerves," or something like, "I only have one good nerve left, and so-and-so is jumping on it." For years, I have heard people casually refer to their nervous systems using those and other idioms. Today's discussion focuses on the nervous system. Who has one? What is it? How does it function? And how does it respond during and after traumatic events? I want to reiterate something that I've mentioned in a previous episode. While I cover a variety of topics on this podcast, the through line of my content is encouragement for homicide survivors to live healthy and fulfilling lives. And I do that in part by sharing information regarding how death by homicide impacts loved ones who are left to pick up the pieces. The good news is that you don't have to be a homicide survivor to listen and get something useful from this podcast. The lens through which I present data, and to a large degree how I experience life anymore, is that of a person whose loved one died by homicide. But even if you haven't experienced this loss, I invite you to keep listening because you could discover something that's pertinent to you. This episode is one such example because if you are listening, then you have a nervous system. Before we delve into how the nervous system responds to trauma, I think it's important to talk about what the nervous system is. I will be using biological, anatomical, and clinical terminology throughout this episode. So I appreciate your patience as I explain the various components of a complex system. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional, so feel free to consult with members of your care team if you have specific questions related to your nervous system. First, let's talk about who has a nervous system. In short, any sentient being has a nervous system. The word sentient comes from the Latin verb sentire, which means to feel or perceive. Sentient beings have both complex brain function and central nervous systems that can process information. They are capable of having subjective experiences, feelings, and sensations, meaning they can feel pleasure, pain, joy, and distress, rather than just reacting to stimuli like a machine. So, humans, most mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, amphibians, and increasingly recognized invertebrates like octopuses and squids. So, what is the nervous system? The nervous system can be divided into two major divisions: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Bear with me as we unpack the layers of the system. The central nervous system is comprised of the brain and spinal cord. Think of it as the body's command center. The peripheral nervous system is made up of nerves that branch off from the spinal cord and extend to all parts of the body, including muscles, organs, and the senses. It connects the central nervous system to the rest of the body. Think of the peripheral nervous system as a bunch of messengers carrying out instructions from the command center. Let's take a closer look at the peripheral nervous system, which has two major subdivisions: the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system is associated with activities traditionally thought of as conscious or voluntary. It is involved in the relay of sensory and motor information to and from the central nervous system. Somatic means of, related to, or affecting the body. The autonomic nervous system controls our internal organs and glands and is generally considered to be outside the realm of voluntary control. It can be further subdivided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. We will spend most of our time discussing these divisions. The sympathetic nervous system is involved in preparing the body for stress-related activities, governing our fight or flight response functions. The parasympathetic nervous system is associated with returning the body to routine, day-to-day operations, controlling involuntary rest and digest functions. To recap, sympathetic governs fight or flight, parasympathetic governs rest and digest. All right, so let's dig into the parasympathetic nervous system a little more. It is responsible for calming the body, conserving energy, and managing routine functions like digestion, heart rate, and urination. It acts as a counterbalance to the sympathetic fight or flight system and facilitates a state of calm and recovery. It slows your heart, increases digestive activity, constricts pupils, and promotes relaxation through signals often carried by the vagus nerve, a vital part of the parasympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve serves as the communication pathway between the brain and major organs like the heart, the lungs, and gut, controlling involuntary functions like heart rate, digestion, and breathing, and playing a key role in the body's relaxation response. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems have complementary functions, operating in tandem to maintain the body's homeostasis. Homeostasis is a state of equilibrium or balance in which biological conditions are maintained at optimal levels. Homeostasis is the ability of a living system to maintain a stable, balanced internal environment like temperature, blood sugar, or pH, despite changes in external conditions. It ensures optimal functioning for survival through automatic, self-regulating processes. Think of it as a thermostat keeping a room at a steady temperature, but for all of your body's essential systems. The ideal place for us to be is in homeostasis, balance. So how does the parasympathetic nervous system work? Well, it is always active, working in opposition to the sympathetic nervous system. It conserves energy and maintains homeostasis. Signals originate in the brain stem and the sacral spinal cord, using cranial nerves like the vagus and sacral nerves to reach organs. So the command center, the vagus nerve, and the sacral nerves send messages to the parasympathetic nervous system. The sacral spinal cord is the lowest segment of the spinal cord, arising from the base of the spine and housing nerves crucial for controlling pelvic organs like the bladder, bowels, and sex organs, including the uterus. The parasympathetic nervous system is a key part of the nervous system's control center for these vital functions. Remember the word sacral because we will come back to it. So again, the key functions of the parasympathetic nervous system include lowering the heart rate and pumping force, constricting pupils, improving close-up vision, increasing digestion, diverting energy to the digestive process, and signaling the pancreas for insulin. Tightening the airway muscles, reducing the work required to breathe, relaxing the bladder and bowel muscles for elimination. So we've defined the nervous system and how each component functions. We talked about homeostasis and why that's important. Now let's discuss what happens to our body's command center after we experience trauma. Trauma disrupts the body's natural ability to maintain homeostasis by overwhelming the stress systems. This leads to a stuck fight or flight response and maladaptive patterns in the brain, immune, and endocrine systems, resulting in ongoing inflammation, emotional dysregulation, and physical health issues. When the body is unable to return to normal and gets stuck in a heightened stress state, interventions are required to help it reset to a healthier balance. On average, your fight or flight response can last anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. One should calm down once the danger has passed. It's worth noting that physical and emotional trauma both trigger the same autonomic nervous system survival response. While they differ in origin, both physical and emotional trauma can become trapped in the body. Homicide survivors and witnesses to homicide experience the following. chronic stress and toxic stress, which causes lasting nervous system changes, leading to anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Changes to brain structure and function, including an overactivation of fear systems, potentially altering brain development, especially in children. Cognitive issues, including difficulty concentrating, memory problems, and impaired executive function, and emotional and behavioral changes such as irritability, anger, heightened stress response, and difficulty processing grief. Drawing on lived experience, I'll add one more to this list, and that is rumination. In psychology, rumination is the repetitive dwelling on negative feelings, problems, or past mistakes, focusing on their causes and consequences without reaching a solution. This creates a mental loop that worsens distress and can lead to or intensify depression, anxiety, and stress. Rumination triggers the body's stress response, flooding it with cortisol and adrenaline, leading to inflammation, increased heart rate, poor sleep, and heightened pain sensitivity. Rumination is like obsessively replaying a bad event, re-experiencing negative emotions, and getting stuck in unhelpful thought patterns that hinder problem solving and healthy coping. So, for example, if you're experiencing overwhelming guilt over a loved one's homicide, it is possible that you have been stuck in a loop that tells you, I am responsible for my loved one's death, which makes a return to homeostasis extremely difficult. Earlier, I said that a person should calm down once the danger has passed. But when you ruminate, your body does not know that you are not actually in physical danger in that moment. It feels your stress and says, we are in danger. We need cortisol and adrenaline to help us out of this risky situation. I found a brief illustrated YouTube video that describes the fight or flight response and the downside of survival brain. I'll include a link to it in the description box. Although the video is geared toward children, I like it because it's simple enough for anyone to understand. Trauma exposure leads to a low vagal tone, which means that your vagus nerve, a key part of the rest and digest parasympathetic system, is not as active, leading to a reduced ability to calm down from stress or stress resilience and difficulty recovering, often seen as heart rate variability issues, higher stress reactivity, and links to conditions like depression, anxiety, and gut problems. What happens when homeostatic imbalance is long-term? In the short term, you may feel tired, weak, or may get sick often due to a weaker immune system. Over time, this imbalance creates toxic stress and can create serious problems. The body's internal stability is lost, which can lead to cell dysfunction, an accumulation of waste, or a lack of necessary nutrients, which can result in imbalances, disease like diabetes, hypertension, or cancer, severe injury like heat stroke or hypothermia, or even death if the imbalance isn't corrected. We will revisit toxic stress again in an upcoming episode. I am reminded of the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. Dr. Mate is a Hungarian-Canadian physician, author, and speaker known for his work on the deep connections between trauma, stress, and addiction. In his book, When the Body Says No, The Cost of Hidden Stress, Dr. Mate explores the link between emotional stress, repressed feelings, and chronic illness, arguing that conditions like cancer, diabetes, and arthritis can stem from psychological factors. Drawing on scientific research and clinical experience, Mate connects suppressed emotions, especially anger, and chronic stress to the body's immune and hormonal systems, suggesting that illness can be the body's way of expressing what the mind won't acknowledge. It is so important that we acknowledge our feelings and create healthy habits and practices that allow us to process those feelings, which will help our homeostasis reach equilibrium once again. When you experience a physical ailment or receive a diagnosis, Ask yourself, how are my emotions and responses to real life experiences contributing to this? Our nervous system plays such an important role in our mental and physical well being. The takeaway here is that all of our systems are connected. Our well being is best served when we embrace whole person care, which refers to a healthcare approach focusing on interconnected physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual needs, not just specific symptoms or diseases. We are our best advocates. Each of us, whether you are a homicide survivor or not, should be equipped with information and feel confident enough to engage in bidirectional conversations with medical professionals to secure the best outcomes for mental, physical, and emotional well-being. In an upcoming video, I will talk more about ways to boost the rest and digest part of the nervous system. The YouTube video that I referenced earlier includes a few ways to calm that survival brain, so please take 5 minutes to watch that. Before we close, I want to have a moment of silence for anyone who was mourning the recent death of a loved one to homicide, anyone observing the anniversary of a loved one's death, or navigating holidays and or the birthday of a departed loved one. May you find peace. May you find compassion. Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful, subscribe to the podcast on iHeartRadio and Spotify, and share with your friends. Until next time.